Hello, Felicia. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Naveen.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time again. It's such a pleasure to see you. I know we met recently, and it was just great to meet you and learn so many things that we talked about data and visualizations. So, thank you for coming on. How's your day been going?
Yeah, today has been a lot of meetings, so I'm looking forward to us talking, and then I'll take a little break for lunch after this.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Felicia, again, I wanted to go back a little bit and ask you, like, where did you start your data journey, and uh, how was it coming into the data field?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a rocky start. I graduated with a degree in mathematics and economics back in 2012, so a decade ago. And it actually took me 9 months to find my first career data job. So it was a
Okay.
very long job search right off the bat. I worked as an AmeriCorps Vista for a year at a nonprofit, and that's essentially a volunteer role that they give you a living stipend for. So I was making basically no money. I stayed with that nonprofit for a couple more years, still making like under $30,000. And then eventually in 2016, I left that and got my first Tableau job working with a healthcare system in
Yeah.
their supply chain analytics team. So, and yeah, that was really great. I loved Tableau right away, and that's kind of launched my career from there.
Wonderful. So if I can take you back to that point where you know, you said you had like a rocky start. Right. What were some of the things that were challenging? And the reason I ask this is I work with a lot of students, and a lot of the viewers of this podcast are also people who are just graduating, interested in data, products, and tech. So they might relate to you. What were some of like your biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
Yeah. So looking at internships 10 years ago, things were pretty different. Most internships were unpaid,
Yeah.
and I was responsible for my own costs through college. So I was taking paying work that was less prestigious, which then made it a really job after graduating. So I would definitely recommend getting an internship if that's a possibility for you, especially if a paid internship is available.
Okay. Let's dive into that because that's a contentious topic even right now because I get a lot of students messaging me about like, hey, do you have any internships? Or I have an internship, but the work is not great, but I have this other option, but they're not paying me at all. So this paid versus non-paid internship, what would be your take now? Um, if you had to go all the way back again.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really believe the internship should be paid. I don't
Okay.
think we should be, getting free labor from anybody. Even if it's a small amount, you need to make sure that that person's time is compensated.
Okay. And then if you're not finding those like paid opportunities, then for students, what do you recommend doing?
Yeah, I would start building a portfolio. So, maybe try um, a community challenge if you're interested in something like Tableau or an open code project if you're more into the engineering world. Work on personal projects that you can talk about in interviews. And if you feel like it and you have the resources to do it, consider volunteering with a local organization for experience.
Okay, good. Um, with that, like transitioning from an intern, right, uh, to a data professional, what are the top 3 to 4 skills that you think are like super important?
Yeah, this is gonna be controversial, but I think Excel is critical. Like,
Excel. Okay.
Excel, I know it's a little bit of a red flag if I work on a project these days that includes Excel because
Yeah,
even a single typo can throw it all off. But at its core, like that's what a lot of large corporate businesses run on.
that is
And
so true.
it's knowing those functions, like it's a common language. Like if I tell you, oh, it's like a VLOOKUP, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you need to know your fundamentals. And unfortunately, Excel is always going to be a fundamental.
I'm
I
sorry.
think,
And because you're so right. You're so right.
yeah,
Every organization uses Excel. When you said, this is going to be controversial, I thought you were going to mention some, AI tool or something to do with,
yeah.
like blockchain or
Mhm.
some fancy new tool, but you just went back to the basic. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people wanna skip that, and they're like, "We don't even need that anymore, just skip it, just do Snowflake, Airtable, go straight into databases." But no, like, you need to know the core systems, and it is one. On top of Excel, I'm gonna say SQL, 'cause
Okay.
it's quick to learn, so quick to pick up, and everything uses it, and if you understand query language,
Yeah.
you'll understand so many more tools. Um, and then 3rd, I think a lot of the core skills of visualization best practices, requirements gathering, soft skills to say, hey, we need to push that deadline out. Those are things that AI is never going to replace. They're all tool agnostic. So it's important to pick those up while you're in internships and early in your career.
Okay, that's great. So just to summarize, start with your base tools, which is like Excel, SQL, then some other BI tools, but along with that technical aspect, have some soft skills for working with people and getting the job done. Those kinds of things.
Exactly.
I think that's really sound advice, Felicia. So thank you for sharing that. But what are some of the things that you're seeing as a gap? Also, I want to, again, this might go slightly controversial, but uh, I do feel there's a little bit of a gap of people graduating, even when I graduated, and even now. Uh, when you're graduating and then when you're pushed into the job, when you're working, there's still that gap. And
Yeah.
why do you think that there's a gap there still? And what do you think can be done to kind of eliminate or reduce?
Yeah. It's hard because I don't think it's the fault of students or people entering the workforce. One gap, if you're specifically interested in data visualization, is working with live data. So, a lot of our portfolio projects are going to take a fixed data set that maybe ended last year, the year before, has all of the data that we're going to have, and then we build something with that. But when you're working with a real data set in real life, you're going to be getting new values. So it's going to update tomorrow, on the next day, on the day. It'll break when we get to July 1st, and it's going to break at the end of the quarter and the start of the new year. And somebody's going to come to you and say, "Why is it blank?" And you're going to have to tell them, "Oh, it's the first of the month. There's no data yet."
Okay, yeah.
Or
Mm.
somebody's going to go in and be like, "Oh, we opened a new office in Boise," and then all of a sudden your chart doesn't fit. And you're like, "Oh God, I have to
Been there.
reformat
Been there.
things." Yeah. So those complications of working with data that's constantly evolving and changing and might break and data flows that are getting corrupted sometimes, I think is the real gap between our portfolios and then our actual what we spend our time doing.
Hmm. Interesting you say that. Is there a way to kind of simulate that while you're learning? Any live data sets that you recommend students to access?
That's a great question. I don't know of a community project that currently works like that, but I think using your personal data can mimic it.
Mm.
So if you're taking your data off of your Fitbit, or maybe you log your
Mhm.
food, your budget, your grades,
Mm.
that data is going to keep updating. And
Right.
so building a tool based on that data will help you build that skill and that inference for it. But I think some of it also has to be lived.
Okay. Yeah, that is true. You cannot substitute experience all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Uh, Speaking of experience, I know I was going through your portfolio and I came across uh, Grasshopper. Could you tell me a little bit? I love the name, by the way.
I
Cool
love
name.
it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back in 2016, I was like learning Tableau, getting really excited, and I wanted to do these community projects and get involved online. And I knew I needed a good Twitter handle. So I wrote down this list of all these different data words like data, graph, chart, bar chart. And I just took like a week and just thought of different puns and it was like testing them on my husband. It's like, oh, what do you think about like chart chomper or whatever?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, no, no. And we had like this short list of good puns. And I went with Grasshopper because it's so multi-layered. Like grasshoppers are like new and constantly learning, and you've got like the young grasshopper reference from Karate Kid. So I feel like that really captures my value of like constant learning and always picking up something new. And Hopper is like always hopping between projects. I'm never focused on the same thing for too long. And then it also like alludes to Grace Hopper, who was like a legend, developed COBOL, like one of the first great female programmers. So yeah, just on all levels, it felt like a great fit. And I'm so happy that I took the extra time to really test out a few different things before.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And that's a cool story also behind uh, sometimes we think a lot in terms of brands and how brands evolve. I feel like that the Grasshopper brand kind of exudes a lot of those things, which are an extension of we've talked about this a little bit, which are an extension of you and all the things that you do. So again, congratulations on that initiative. Um, well, this is no surprise that you love data. If nobody has noticed yet that you have data on your T-shirt already. Data, 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 data. So my question was, why do you love working with data? Why did you get into this? Just at a deeper level.
That is such a great question. Um, so I studied math because I love problem solving, and just that thrill of like getting to an answer has always really interested me and given me dopamine.
Oh, wow.
And then while I was studying, my professor would be like, Felicia, you cannot use visual proofs this much. Like, you need to get away from just sketching something out and relying on that. And I feel like that really speaks to like that intersection of logic and visualization where I sit right now. So I didn't know this career existed when I was in school, but I'm looking back, I'm not surprised that I found it. Um, and I've always been drawn to like spreadsheets and Excel things. I have like these little, I call it like a data hoard.
Oh, wow.
Like I'm house hunting right now. So I have this spreadsheet of like the different houses that we're interested in and different features that we care about. Um, and then like I have another data set for a convention that I go to and like looking at the different hotels and gaming out the prices and how far it is from the convention center. So like I've just always kind of collected data a little bit and enjoyed this is a very good fit for me. So if you're like you watching this are a person who has a bunch of spreadsheets or Google Sheets on your drive, this might be a good fit for you.
Okay. Wonderful. Felicia, the one thing that will stay with me from what you just said is like the thrill of coming to an answer and the fact that you love math. That's a rarity in itself. I don't know too many people who say that. So was this always like natural, or was this something that you grew into? If we go like
Yeah.
really back, like where did your love for math begin?
I was such a math hater until the end of high school. Like algebra, I hated it. I hated it so much. Geometry, ugh. But then when we started getting into calculus and we had a little bit more of a hands-off teacher where we had to really go and look for the answers, um, I started enjoying it more. And I don't know what flipped that switch, but I can see other places in my life where this appears, where I really like logic puzzles and Sudoku and board games and that kind of logical thinking.
Okay. It's interesting you say that with Sudoku and puzzles and stuff like that, because I get this question a lot, especially with younger students or even their parents who ask like, what can we do to build our child's analytical skills? And I, I don't necessarily like have a great answer. I'm like, let the kid just be a kid, you know.
Yeah.
But do you have any like suggestions, or even as an adult, like what can you do to sharpen your analytical skills that are still fun?
That's a great question. I think logic puzzles are a good way to do it. Like, I don't know, maybe get the little New York Time puzzle game.
Yeah,
I enjoy those. Um, one I've been playing lately is called Star Battle. I can just send you the link.
yeah, we'll link it in the description too.
Yeah, and then there was this monthly event. I actually did my whole Iron Viz submission around it. This monthly event is called Puzzle Pint,
Okay.
and so people will meet up at different bars in cities around the world, and they'll get this puzzle packet of like 5 puzzles that are these logic puzzles, word puzzles. It'll use elements of like word searches and crosswords and with a common theme. And then they all fit together into this beautiful meta puzzle. It's really fun. So if you like problem solving, that could be a good challenge. Now that's for adults, not for kids. It's sometimes like PG-13.
Yeah.
But if you want to sharpen your skills as an adult, just seek out those puzzles. I think that's a great way to improve your logical and lateral thinking.
Wonderful.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people who are supporting this. A big shout out to the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. The Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition is a member based non-profit which is on a mission to inclusively grow the vibrant tech ecosystem in Southeast Wisconsin. Thank you so much to the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition for sponsoring this podcast.
What is Iron Viz? And then kind of segue again to what you have done with the Iron Viz as well.
Of course. Yeah. So Iron Viz is a competition that Tableau puts on each year. There are actually 2 separate competitions. One is open to everybody, and the second one is open to students only.
Okay.
So if you're a student watching this, Student Iron Viz is a great time. You should totally do it. If you're a student watching this, Tableau Public is available completely for free. So there's no monetary limit to entering. What happens is Tableau will announce a theme, usually sometime in the fall. And this last year's theme was things that you love. And so I created a puzzle set that
Okay.
resembled like a puzzle pint puzzle inside of Tableau. So it was really pushing like what Tableau can do instead of using an existing data set. And then I collected playtesting information and used that playtesting survey as a data set to do an analysis. So it looks at your storytelling skills, your technical Tableau skills, and your analysis of
Okay.
the data, and looks at those 3 parts. Then your submission is reviewed by Tableau experts. I got to judge the student panel. It was so much fun. I loved seeing student submissions. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then those scores are aggregated, and I believe it's the top 5 or 10 are announced and shared with everybody. And then after that, everybody's submissions are shown so you can see what everybody else did, see the things that they love, which was amazing to look at. I learned about so many different hobbies and stories from people's lives. It was really beautiful. And it's great to see what so many different people do with that theme.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I was amazed too. I think people, and this is again for those listeners who don't know about this, um, with the Tableau community, they always kind of advocate like use the data that you love, or use the data that is relevant to you, and tell your own story with your own data. And I could see that a lot of people have like got on to that trend and using just things that they love. And it was quite evident to exactly your point that you mentioned. So where do you see that trend going then, Felicia? Both with like personal data, and what are the next 5 years looking for the data space and data visualization space in general?
That's great. I don't have a crystal ball, so don't hold me to this. But I think as we get more storage space and more cloud resources, people are going, at least I am going to start collecting more information from my life, storing it online, combining it with other data sets, Tableau Public has just made local save available. I know there are tools like Alteryx that have free versions available now for individuals. I think that there are a lot of ways that we can collect, analyze, and even automate data in our own lives. That's going to be really interesting. Um, so I know not everybody's going to do it. Some people are just never going to be drawn to numbers, and that's totally okay. But if you're interested in collecting data on things that interest you, this is the golden age to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And having the power to analyze it, I sometimes wonder, we right now have more power at our hands, in our hands, than people in the 1980s in like governments and big research institutions had, whether it's like computing power or just access to data or all these tools that are available to us. It's like a fantastic time to be living in. Would you agree?
I do. I think the other side of that coin, though, is data privacy. Like,
Yeah.
you need to protect your information and know what you're agreeing to when you use these different services to collect data. Like, I like using Spotify and Google because I can take my data back out of it and turn it into something.
Mhm.
If you're not interested in that, make sure you're going into those settings and turning it off. Like, if you don't want that data collected on you, you know, don't give it to companies for free because somebody's using it.
Absolutely. No, data privacy definitely will be a thing of the future, which is of a concern. And speaking of concerns, there is another concern, and I'm tempted to hit that and ask you about it. Is again with AI, and there are lots of AI embedded features that we saw in Tableau coming as well. But the the question again that a lot of people are asking is the day and age of the analyst kind of dead?
Mhm.
If you are able to just put prompts,
Yeah.
then the graphs and the data is clean for you, the graphs are created, the analysis is given, then what that just takes out the role of the analyst. So what's your take
Yeah.
on that?
That's I've seen that question a lot of places. I spend a lot of time over on the Tableau subreddit, and that's coming up over and over. I'm not afraid, but I'm also established in my career.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at what AI can do, AI might be able to generate 1,000 dashboards in a single day.
Yeah.
Is that really useful? Because we don't need 1,000 dashboards. Like, that's overwhelming. Just thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, how would I even look at that?
Yeah.
We need careful decisions to be made around what is created, how is it designed, what data do we include, and what data do we combine. Like, somebody has to point the AI in the right direction, and
Mhm.
deciding what direction that should be is actually very challenging. That's one of the hardest parts of our work, is talking to our users, figuring out what problems they're facing,
Yeah.
and then designing something that meets those needs. And I don't think that that can be fully replicated by AI, because a lot of that is guiding people to what the question is.
Exactly, that exploration phase, right?
Yeah.
Of meeting where the problems are and identification of problems, and then
Yeah.
the data and the tools kind of then answer that question. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree that there's still a lot of space, but this, for some reason, there's still a lot of fear.
I I think change is scary, and I think that it we might see fewer entry level jobs. I think the people that are going to get hit hardest are students, unfortunately, who are breaking into this field. It might get smaller. It's
Yeah,
always going to exist.
like those jobs that are only doing like manual data entry, data collection, and building like elementary graphs and stuff like that. I think those kinds of things will be automated. It's safe to say that that will go away completely, right?
I don't think completely,
Yeah,
because there's going to be somebody at the helm, but I think it's going to be reduced. And I think we're going to see development times decrease and things move a little bit faster.
yeah,
But you need somebody steering the AI, and you need somebody checking the AI, because AI is notorious for giving you answers that look accurate and look correct and then are made up, right?
yeah. No, absolutely. One of the things which was fascinating, and I tested this live with one of the people, with one of the engineers who was demoing Tableau Pulse, which is Tableau AI kind of extension in a way, and it was able to write level of detail calculation by just the prompt, uh, which makes it easier because a lot of entry level Tableau engineers kind of struggle in the LOD segments, and it was able to write. So even those kinds of things are kind of shifting. So
Yeah.
do you think it is going to make our jobs like easier or tougher?
Right. I mean, I would not mind it if AI would go in and format all of my filters for me. So I don't have to click one and change it to drop down and I hit
Yeah,
the apply button and repeat for 30 filters across 10 dashboards. Like, please take those like 500 clicks off my hands.
yeah,
That is what I would love to see AI doing for me. And that should be pretty automatable. Um, Writing calculations, like, okay, sure, write some of them, but I think
mm,
there's also strategic decisions with like, do I use an LOD or a table calc here? What else is going on in the view? How do I want to filter it? That bigger ecosystem, I think
yeah,
I want strategic control because the choices you make in your calculations have implications for your build
right.
that I don't trust the AI to make the right choice on.
Mm,
And frankly, like it doesn't take me a long time to write a calculation. Like how much time are we really saving here?
exactly.
Um, so like just learn it. Like how much time are we saving with calculation writing? And then um oh, I had a train of thought and it's gone.
No,
So,
no, 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 no worries at all. Um, One of the things, Felicia, has been with the advent of like data collection, now data being used to, generate all sorts of things. Uh, what do you think that the next 50 years will look like for data? This is an
yeah.
on the spot question, so I'm putting you on the spot. So
Yeah.
just your natural instinct.
I think the automation of data collection is really big. So just saying like, I need you to monitor my electricity usage per hour and just like giving it to a little robot and having them go do it seems very realistic from that. Or there's so many things that could be automated now that we have like image recognition software.
Yeah.
Um, I think things like animal tracking, as ships get smaller, we're going to be able to do so much more ecological research
Mm,
on looking at like what's happening in the environment around us. But is that going to stay funded? Who knows? Um, Hopefully, we'll see a lot of changes around environmental change and helping to reduce emissions and bring the global temperature down a little from how it's been climbing. Like that would be a great thing to put resources into. But 50 years is so far. It's hard to say.
wonderful. Felicia, again, thank you for sharing all your wonderful thoughts today. We will have to do a part two because I have so many other questions that I'd love to cover with you. But thank you again for making the time. This was a wonderful conversation, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our
This
conversation.
podcast is brought to you by the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. The Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition is a member based nonprofit on a mission to inclusively grow the vibrant tech ecosystem in southeast Wisconsin. They help drive innovation by creating catalytic connections. From their tech focused job boards, events calendars, and monthly meetup groups, there are countless ways to plug into the tech ecosystem. Milwaukee's vibrant urban living, thriving food and art scene, and downtown views of Lake Michigan offer the benefits of a big city but with the prices of a small one. If you want to build your tech career in Milwaukee, get connected to choosemketech.org. Thank you so much for listening to this, and a huge shout out to the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition for supporting this podcast.